Hello, aloha. I'm Karin Cooke. I'm a registered nurse, a nutritionist, and co-founder of Kokolulu Farm and Retreats in Hawaii. And today I'm going to be showing you how to make fermented vegetables or a kraut. So first thing we want to do is wash our hands. And then you might ask, why are we worried about making fermented vegetables? Why would we want to do that? Number one, they're delicious. Number two, it's so easy, anybody can do it. But most importantly, it is food for our gut microbiome. Now, I've been a research nurse. I've been a nurse for over 40 years, and the last 12, 15 years of my career was doing research. And I have to say that the research coming through now on the importance of healthy gut microbiome on health and longevity is the most exciting research I've seen in my entire career. So I'm excited to share with you just a small piece of making something to help you build up your gut microbiome. The gut microbiome is the beneficial bacteria, or the bacteria in our gut. And hopefully our gut bacteria is the beneficial kind and not the bad kind. When we have plenty of positive beneficial gut bacteria, which we get by eating good probiotic foods. Probiotic means good bacteria, good for the bacteria. You'll also hear the word prebiotic. That's food for the probiotic. That's another story. But I really want you to understand the importance of having your gut microbiome be as healthy as possible. So today we are going to make a kimchi or a kraut or fermented veggies. It's like kimchi, but I don't make it real hot like kimchi typically is. Okay? So we've washed our hands. The things you're going to need to get started. Number one, a scale. Why a scale? Because we need a scale to weigh the empty, large bowl that we have. We want to know how much salt to use. We know how much salt to use by how much does our ingredient weigh. So we would use about 1.5 to 1 3/4 tablespoons per pound of vegetables, okay? So we're gonna weigh the bowl. And I'm gonna write it down because I tend to forget. 0.139, so 0.1.5, something like that. All right, so we'll use that again after we fill our bowl with vegetables. And we'll deduct the weight of the bowl. This bowl obviously doesn't weigh a whole lot. It's not going to get in the way of how much salt you use if you forget to deduct or forget to weigh your bowl. So I'm going to show you about the ingredients we're going to use. But first, besides the bowl and the scale, you're going to want either a grater or a food processor. You're going to use large jars, unless you have a pickling or fermenting crock. And salt, the all-important salt. Salt draws the water out of the vegetables, which creates a briny atmosphere, and in that briny atmosphere is where the beneficial bacteria grow and the bad bacteria die. The primary beneficial bacteria we're getting out of fermented vegetables is called lactobacillus. So some of the stuff we're going to use today, I've already cut up a lot of it, so you wouldn't have to watch me do all of it. So we're going to add all of this to the big bowl. And it looks like so much. Wait till you see how it goes down as we work this, how it gets smaller in volume as all the water comes out and joins the salt. So I'm going to use a food processor for grating the carrots and the ginger. So bear with me while I make some noise here. You can use pretty much any vegetables you want. Today, we're going to be using cabbage, both green and red, carrots, ginger, and turmeric. And all of this is optional. If you only want to use cabbage, or cabbage and carrots, or carrots, you can do whatever you want. But this is what I'm using today. And at the end of this, I will put a recipe for you to follow. So that was turmeric and ginger. Now, when we use turmeric, we want to add a little bit of black pepper. Do you know why? Turmeric is not very bioavailable to the body. Black pepper makes turmeric bioavailable. So I've gotten that. Okay, we're going to use some red onions. You can use any onions or no onions. You can use garlic. We're also going to put in a swig of rosemary. I've never done that before, but I'm going to try that this time. And so I'm going to just chop up these onions. And I'm not chopping them very small because they're all going to shrink up anyway. So just make it easy on yourself. And then when you do your cabbage, now again, I've already cut one of them up and I'm going to use maybe just a half of this one because we have quite a bit. But if you can remember, I tend to always forget. You want to remember to save off the outer layer of skin of your cabbage to put on top of your finished product in the jar to keep it submerged under the brine that we're going to make. So I'm just going to quickly chop up this red cabbage. And yes, you could put it in the food processor, but I find it faster to just chop it up actually. And I'm taking out the big heavy cores. And then put this in the bowl with all the other good stuff. Oftentimes I will also add a beet. And that gives it great nutrition. Tastes yummy. But just today I'm not. When you add even one beet, and you can add as many as you want, because they're very healthy, of course, the beet will turn the whole product red. This is all I have left of my previous batch, and it had one beet, 2 heads of cabbage, several carrots, and you see how it's all red. I've kept this because it's good to add just a little bit of the old stuff to the new. It speeds up the fermenting process. Not essential, you don't have to do that. All right, so I'm going to do some of this cabbage. So you just cut it in pieces, and whatever way works best for you. Cut it up like so. Now, we are going to weigh the bowl and see how much we have now. £7, a little over. And so if we deduct the 0.1, it's just going to put us right at about 7 pounds. Okay? So 7 pounds, and I said, okay, math time. So a tablespoon of salt per 1 3/4, more or less. So if we were to say 1.5 pounds of vegetables into 7 would be 1, 3, 4, about 4 3/4, almost 5. So we would want to use 5 tablespoons. Is that right? So let me, like measuring and cutting wood, measure twice, cut once, right? So think about your product again. We have 7 pounds, and I want a tablespoon for 1 3/4 pounds. So if, let's say if it was 2 pounds and I'd want a tablespoon for 2 pounds, this is 3 1/2. So 7 pounds would be, if I divided it in half, 2 pounds into 7, 3 1/2, 3 1/2 tablespoons, plus a little extra. And remember, I'm going to give you the recipe at the end, all written down, so you don't have to try and remember this. So 1, 2, 3, and a half. Now that's a whole lot of vegetables and not a whole lot of salt, but wait till you see what it does. Take off the jewelry here. Now we're going to do, as we say in Hawaii, loaming. See if we can get the best. So you just start massaging it. And you're going to do this for probably a good 5 minutes. So we're going to stop the video right now and come back in 5 minutes after I'm done doing this. So we have been massaging this product, the vegetables, for about 7 minutes. Now I'm going to show you that you will have, can you see all the water down in there? Can you see that, Lee? All right, so you can also taste it. Should taste a little bit salty, not overly salty, and it should be a little salty for sure. It is important that you use the right amount of salt, because if you don't use enough salt, you won't kill off the bad bacteria. And you want to kill off the bad while feeding the good. If you use too much salt, you could kill off both the bad and the good bacteria. So that's why I suggested you weigh your product and use the salt that'll be on the recipe at the end of this. All right, we're ready to go. And now we would fill our jar or whatever we're using. So I have this pickling crock I'm going to fill. When you're using a jar, and it works just fine, you can get fancy fermenting tops that let the air out, but you don't have to. But what you do need to know is that as this fermenting process starts happening, in about a day, maybe 2 days, you'll see some bubbles in your jar. And there's a gas that is produced when this process is occurring. You need to be able to allow that gas to escape. So after 1 or 2 days, you need to start releasing the lid maybe twice a day to let the pressure off. I would keep it on a plate on your kitchen counter. It can bubble over. So you would only fill it about 3/4 full. Give it some room to bubble. So my crock is full, and I would want to put some of the liquid in here, and the rest will go in the jar. You want your product to be submerged in liquid. And then you either put weights. Remember I had you save some of your cabbage leaf? So you'd cover the top of that product and put a weight on top of it. So I'm going to come back to this and show you about doing it in a jar. So same with a big ball jar. You just stick it all in there. And sometimes, like maybe today, sometimes the veggies have more water content than others. So today I'm not sure we got enough water. Here, I'll show you. There's still all that water down on the bottom. But we need to have enough to cover the product in the jar, in the container. So, if you don't have enough water, then you could make a brine, B-R-I-N-E. Brine is a tablespoon of salt to a cup of water. So if you don't have enough water from your veggies to cover them, that's the next option. So we're going to put all this in the jar. And I had mentioned to you that we could add, that it helps speed up the process if we add some of our product from before. So I'm going to split this up between both containers. Probably would have been good to stir it in, but it doesn't really matter. All right. Then you really compact your product way down under the level of the liquid. All right. And now I'm going to put my cabbage leaf on top of that. Keeps the oxygen level down. That one I guess I won't be using. So I'm just going to put these cabbage leaves on top so that the oxygen doesn't turn the surface area color. It still may turn a little bit gray. You might get a little white mold growing on it, and you can just pull that off. You don't have to. You can eat it. But if you don't like the looks of it, you can pull it off. So I used a lot of vegetables today because we go through quite a bit of this. All right, so now I'm going to put the lid on it because it is submerged under the liquid. Barely, but it is. So we'll put the lid on it, and I'm not going to screw this part on very tight, just barely, so that if I happen to forget tomorrow to check it, and it happens to boil over, it won't boil over, but bubble over, it'll be able to do that. This jar is not that full, so I'm not running the risk of it either bubbling over really or breaking the jar. But if I was to pack it full, it could break the jar if you didn't let the air escape. And that's what fermenting lids do. They let the air escape and you don't have to think about it. All right, so I just stick this back on out of the sun. Doesn't have to be in the dark, but just on the back of the counter where you'll see it's a good idea, because you do want to check it after about 5 days. So depending on how warm your temperatures are, here in Hawaii in the summer, this may be ready in 5 days. In the winter, maybe 7. And it's ready when it tastes the way you like it. The longer you leave it, the more tangy or tart it gets. We happen to like it at about 7 days. All right. And there you have it. Happy fermenting. Aloha, it's Karin Cooke again, and here we are with our finished product. We have fermented some amazing vegetables. It's been 5 days. We talked about 5 to 7 days, and we often like to go 7 days in the winter time, but in the summer here, where it's very warm, 5 was enough days. And again, you go by taste. So remember, we put a cabbage leaf on top to keep the air off. It may get very discolored. You might see some white scum on the top of your ferment. That's all okay. You can stir it in, you can scoop it off, whatever feels best to you, but it is not harmful. So now we have the ferment. We are going to put it in the refrigerator so it won't continue to ferment. The longer it ferments, the more tart and vinegary it will taste. You can leave it fermenting longer if you like that taste. In the refrigerator, it'll mostly stop the fermenting process. Just a tiny bit will go on, but it's good. They say forever in the refrigerator. It won't last that long. We will eat this in probably a week or 2. So enjoy your ferment. Happy fermenting.